Hello, this is Anton, and let's cut to the chase. I think at least some of you know about Daft. If you do not, Daft, real name Ryan Burke, is a YouTuber and commentator. He mostly commentates on artists and the YouTube animation community. He mainly covers storytime animators, but has looked at other types of artists as well. He will critique them and suggest how they could improve on their craft. It was these videos that got me hooked, so I did watch him for some time. He would even try to call people out if they appeared to be tracing, which did garner him some special attention and praise. Naturally, Daft would focus on the tracing topic more often in future videos, seeming to thrive on drama much of the time. So of course, when a thread on Twitter was made disparaging me for tracing, Daft, to his credit, politely asked me to take part in his video. I knew it would involve a tracing controversy based on his videos in the past, so I accepted the invitation knowing that I would need to defend myself. But I should mention what was it that sparked the controversy in the first place. Well, it started with a new side project I had been teasing on Twitter. Takes comic artists from Twitter, mainly political comics, so red-pilled artists, blue-pilled artists, and artists in between, and pits them against each other in a fighting game. The game did use images to match the characters being represented, but only just about one image for each character. The example of what I used, the one that got most attention, was an image of a certain comic creator on the blue-pilled side. I traced that as the base for the model in the mock-up trailer, but after that all the animation bits, like his attacks, were original. The only reason I traced one image was to make sure their representation looked recognizable, and once I got it down, I made the rest of the work from scratch. Of course, the people who already have a problem with me, the game, or both, have been trying to find ways to ruin my passion and get me to lose the support I have gathered over the years. So the few people that noticed the similarities with the picture and the animation stated that everything should be done from scratch and began campaigning the idea that tracing is wrong, no matter who does it. It spilled out to other people saying that even my animation videos are stealing artwork because many of the characters are traced. To be fair, there are quite a few people who feel that tracing on the internet is wrong, no matter what. So since a few of these groups got into an uproar about the supposed evils of tracing, Daft took notice of the thread and gained an interest in making a video about me. He retweeted the thread and in no time at all messaged me on Twitter about the video. We set up a time and day to talk on Discord, and he ended up only using maybe 6 minutes of what was a 6-hour conversation. In those 6 hours, it slowly dawned on me that tracing was not his main target. That was just the appetizer. It then slowly became clear to me that this video may not end up being a fair assessment. Daft's whole feeling, which was definitely intact in his video, was that artists like Stone Toss and Mr. Pumpkinface essentially groomed me into being like them, radicalizing me to be a tracist, as some have put it. I should mention though that while we do talk outside of Twitter and behind the scenes, we are not as close as Daft portrayed, and if he does still think so, then how come he never got in touch himself with Mr. Pumpkinface and Stone Toss for an interview? So I would say they did not really groom me like Daft thinks. These groomer accusations do not hold any weight until actual evidence is presented. But regardless, Daft had shown that after my last animated video involving Corona-chan, I had begun to draw comics. That was mainly to keep my creative juices flowing through the summer, because the summer heat in Estonia makes it difficult for me to animate big projects. Comics felt easier by comparison, and it allowed me to not go into burnout. The first artwork I made was Mr. Freaks painting himself in petrol oil to pretend to be a Black Lives Matter member, making fun of how people are all too willing to jump on a bandwagon and help out without knowing all the details. The image was a surprise hit, so it encouraged me to continue making comics to keep my creative energy alive. Of course, when Daft highlighted my comics, he only picked out the ones to support his argument, not any of the comics that showed I make fun of all groups. I made fun of gamers, neckbeards, even Christians, so I'm not picking favorites or as biased as you may think I am. Of course, since these people see race in everything, people thought that Mr. Sneaks was a caricature of a black man. He was my online online avatar until my icon on YouTube suddenly disappeared with no explanation. So I'm not too surprised that people on Twitter and Reddit shouted racist as soon as they saw the character. The very first Mr. Sneaks comic I posted on Reddit was instantly banned. Of course, as Daft was unmoving on his preconceived notions about me, he also saw Mr. Sneaks as a representation of a black man. But Mr. Sneaks is not meant to represent black people at all. He may have dated a black woman and dressed in hip-hop styled clothing sometimes, but he is still very much not a human, and therefore not a representation of the black community. If you're thinking that black-colored characters are the only people who date black women and wear hip-hop-like clothing, what do you think that says about how you view black people? But getting back to the topic, I have even made a special comic related to this race confusion. This comic showed a gamer who noticed that Mr. Sneaks has a tail and therefore is not a black man. He is just pretending to be one. He's called Mr. Sneaks for a reason. He's mischievous and greedy and will do anything to get rich quick. So of course he'll use any opportunity like this to his advantage until he gets caught. And note that I have similar looking characters that are not black colored, but would also do naughty things similar to what Mr. Sneaks does. There was also a poster I had that advertised my Mr. Sneaks plushies. It was a spoof on Black Lives Matter, instead saying plush toys matter. The joke being he happens to be colored black, therefore he matters. Daft seems to have a habit of cherry picking what to show to represent me a certain way. I know cherry picking might be seen as a loaded term, but here are some things Daft failed to even make a quick mention about. I made a character that was actually meant to represent African Americans, and he was Mr. Leaps. He was just another member of the cast I had created. Daft, however, never showed him off, even though he was in multiple comic strips. I even made a few comics where trans people were shown positively, like one where a sim caricature is defending a trans person needlessly, even when she was clearly not offended. But Daft never bothered to look at that or any of the other examples either. But as of right now, I'm done with comics, and I have stated this back in August. Maybe there will be a season 2, I don't know, but Daft seemed to have ignored that as well, that I'm not making comics anymore for the rest of the year. Daft also did not mention that the creators of Zooptoon and Anxiety Demon are openly bisexual and gay. Also the fact that the creator of the New Guy meme, Sweet Beans, is trans, and who has even 2 characters in my game, the New Guy and the Sweet Beans self-insert. So there is clearly some diversity in the game I created. Maybe you don't care about these omissions, but Daft leaving them out of the video says to me that he is not trying to inform people, just make them think the worst of me. So having said my piece on the race and phobia issues, let's move on to the tracing part now, since that is a bigger deal for me, even if the other topics weren't wrapped around with it. I don't entirely disagree with the negatives of tracing, but I do think that it is blown out of proportion. So let me explain. I started doing parodies when I made Sonic's deathbed, after feeling heartbroken from the games that came out about him at the time. It gained the most attention I had ever received for any of my videos, so I made sequels and spin-offs that were variants of the initial video. I made it this way because I was inspired by the Ctrl-Alt-Delete comic Loss, which became very infamous and led to people making their own version of the comic. Of course, people would use these videos as examples of what is considered traced, but for the most part, only the general designs from the Sonic Adventure games are used. All the animation frames in the video were unique, just like in the Pill Fighter game. It does take a lot more skill and effort than most people realize to make the in-betweens within the video. Because of the initial in-betweens I had the characters do in the first deathbed, it could actually be considered transformative, not truly degrading my drawing skills and not really tracing if it was only one general image of a character. Now you may say that because I traced at all, it is still a terrible thing to do because I'm using someone else's work. Well, if tracing is that horrible, even if it's in a parody or a fan video, then why did the official aka Cartoon Inc. Facebook page post my Eddie and Eddie parody video twice? Surely they noticed the traced elements in the video, yet they had no issues with it. Are they in the wrong? Are you going to disparage them? Now, my own feeling about parodies that use tracing is that it is good to use it in order to get the right feeling for the show. A good parody tries to have you feel like you are watching the original source material, at least in some way, just comedically or satirically exaggerated to some extent. Now let's look at some other creators who made fan parodies of Scooby-Doo and compare them.
Oh, Fred, I think we're lost.
Perhaps we've driven past the house.
You can see that this first example had a few elements that were traced, and he does have a bit of his own style, but was still trying his best to emulate the show. By contrast, Meat Canyon's parody not only did not even try to make it feel like the show, but it just looks too ugly to really appreciate, and rather just seem like he's trying to be random for random is random's sake, except there is no real charm to the randomness in my opinion. Don't get me wrong, it is good to have your own art style, but if you want to parody something, you need to try to have the audience watching the parody feel like they're experiencing the original show, so it's more immersive. Meat Canyon has a habit of doing this, using a grotesque style in his parodies, but his style does work out better when he is making a parody of live-action properties, or even real people, as those aren't normally used in animation. If anything, I think Meat Canyon does a better job at animated parodies when they do not involve animated properties. So again, if you're watching a parody, a good one should give you the illusion that you're actually watching the original show, like the parody of The Simpsons by Flash Kids. Pretty much all of the designs in this parody are traced. I think the reason is so it could be as believable as possible, to make you question whether or not you're watching an official Simpsons video. Racist Mario also has quite a bit of traced elements, but if you still think Flash Kids does not trace, I do have other examples of parodies that traced a variety of cartoons, either characters, objects, or backgrounds. Some of these channels are quite popular on YouTube. Mashed has done this a few times. They went as far as copying an entire sequence for a good chunk of one of their videos. Oni has done it once or twice, Pigbarians has done it, Pymations has done it for a few scenes, Rice Pirate has made one. Really, there is a lot more tracing and parodies than you realize, to make sure that they got what they are parodying as close to the original, so people are immersed in it more easily, and it's more convincing that way. There is some 3D animation that takes from other properties to make their own, like the short Logorama. The animators of Logorama used a ton of logos and advertising mascots, and even though it is in 3D, the majority of them looked quite similar to their original counterparts. Oh, and the short won an Oscar. There are also parodies and fan videos of video games that use a lot of sprites from existing games. Last time I checked, those are using works from other people and sometimes profiting off of that. Why isn't this a big problem? So really, there isn't anything wrong with tracing and parodies. You just got to be honest with it. Caricatures are an insult. Tracing is the sincerest form of flattery. So yeah, it is better to be honest with tracing, unlike someone else I know and previously mentioned. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you should do nothing but tracing. Take Mastar Media for example. He's definitely a tracer through and through. His animations are taken nearly wholesale, frame by quite a few companies, mainly Japanese companies. There's rarely any bit of transformative animation here, so it could stand to reason that he traces too much. Thing is, he has done non-traced videos, but they make Meat Canyons look like Da Vinci paintings by comparison. So in this case, the tracing did not help him grow as an artist. However, I still don't have any problems with his traced parodies, though he does seem to trace in his original works too, so that is obviously something I do not approve. If he has to rely on other people's works to show his actual potential, then that is pretty sad. I'd like to also add a topic that isn't directly linked to tracing, but it's just as important to consider when it comes to using existing properties in your own parodies or fan animation. And that topic is 3D and stop motion. In both of these cases, you take an existing model, like from Team Fortress 2 game, and make your own animation with it. Stop motion like Lego animation is highly popular online, and it has a huge community which creates animation from an existing property. Are they in the wrong? I don't think so. It's not who you animate, it's how you animate that matters. Because you still need to learn how to create believable animation yourself. Not anyone can handle the amount of patience, work, and effort needed to create something nice. But going back to my own videos, there are some points like the Twilight's deathbed and the Rick and Morty parody where a set of frames and sequences were traced, and in those cases the tracer artist I hired was credited. And even in those videos with traced bits, there is still quite a bit of original animation done from scratch. There is also the YouTube Awards series, which was one of the big things the people in the Twitter Tracer thread brought up. A lot of the points I made before can be applied here as well. This was meant to be a celebration of the animation on YouTube, and of course I wanted to replicate their style as much as I could. So once again, I only used one image to trace them, and then the movements were animated myself. All of the creators featured in the episode were credited. Some of these creators even commented to say that they liked it. And remember, this is a parody, so characters can be used and it would fall under fair use. But if you think that shouldn't be the case for my video, that I shouldn't have used characters that are not mine, then you should probably say the same about Simpsons, Futurama, South Park, Family Guy, American Dad, Drawn Together, and Robot Chicken. There is also a popular genre on YouTube that revolves around the Doomer meme. These type of videos are created by many different channels, but all of them feature the same Wojak image in one way or another. I see memes as something like communist art, since anyone can take them, edit them, and share them around. So it's kind of funny how most of my detractors who want to smash capitalism are so anal when it comes to using other people's works. Isn't that what communism is about? But anyway, memes like the Wojak and Pepe the Frog have been reappropriated for years. I'm pretty sure the creator of Pepe is still around. Is that immoral in your eyes? Now what about Daft thumbnail? I may have taken part in the video, but I never exactly gave him permission to use my character in the thumbnail. Couldn't that be a form of using someone else's work for profit? But really, Daft has been profiting off of other people's works for years. Maybe he did not trace in his videos, but he is showing them sometimes without permission. But Daft really thinks tracing is something that should not be done by any artists, it seems. Then I wonder how he feels about these following artists: Roy Lichtenstein and Andy Warhol. These two artists can be considered to be similar in how they handle reappropriating other works, so I'm going to compare them and see how they stand in this tracing debate. Lichtenstein made a living through reappropriating images. He was popular in the 60s through his incredible skill and talent in copying others. His artwork prides itself on found images, working from images appearing in various comic books. So Lichtenstein blew up these drawings to wall size and elevated these images into art. However, comic book artists had voiced frustration at having their creations and genre appropriated with little credit and no money. People have said he plagiarized works, simply reproducing the work of the original comic artists without adding much, according to the comics artist Mark Ellerby. He expressed respect for Lichtenstein's talents in works like We Rose Up Slowly, but Ellerby also felt that Lichtenstein's paintings of single frames did not do much justice to the narratives of comic books that could be hundreds of pages long. Art Spiegelman, the creator of the graphic novel Mouse, felt the same way. He even felt similarly about Warhol by saying Lichtenstein did no more or less for comics than Andy Warhol did for soup. Even with this controversy, Lichtenstein still enjoyed worldwide acclaim, and his works continue to sell tens of millions of dollars, even 2 decades after his death. Still, I would have to admit here that tracing is not fair. Now let's compare that to Warhol. Warhol was famous for his art that was pretty much traced from other works, most notably the Campbell's soup can. He has created nearly identical images for a lot of products, people, and even other artwork. For example, in 1963, the painting Mona Lisa was being toured in the United States to ease tensions regarding NATO. Warhol recognized the iconic status of the painting and adapted it to his own style. One of his works, 30 Are Better Than One, repeats this image 30 times to transform one woman's smiling visage into a pattern. Warhol tried this transforming one image through multiple images idea a year earlier. As after Marilyn Monroe passed away, he worked on a series of paintings of the movie star. The portrait was taken from a Niagara published image. The Marilyn series was actually Warhol's third attempt at screen printing to create nearly identical images. So it is safe to assume that screen printing pictures like these became his signature technique. Warhol made hundreds of Marilyn paintings, taking on various color schemes throughout his career, experimenting with vivid hues that became iconic of pop art. Warhol also appropriated the photographs by modern photography editor Patricia Caulfield for his Flower series. Caulfield sued Warhol, but the two later settled. This incident was the only time Warhol faced a copyright lawsuit during his career, built largely on appropriating images, and it did lead Warhol to focus more on his original works. All of the art that he made was actually illegal, and even Campbell's thought about suing Warhol, but the publicity was good enough for the company that doing so could hurt their image more than help. And remember, Warhol is beloved by many. Even when he moved on to his original works, his best remembered and regarded works are still his art's copying from others. Makes me curious what Daft would say about them. Honestly though, maybe he took inspiration more than people would think. You see, I thought that since Daft Pina was so interested in art, that maybe he did some art himself, so I asked him to show me any of his work. What's your account on DeviantArt?
It has since been deleted. Not much was on there, focused more on drawing personally.
Oh, why delete it? Where can I see your drawings?
I didn't want it up anymore. You can see my drawings in videos or on Twitter. Focused a lot more on video work since around 2016.
Don't you have a single place where you have all your art? I don't want to scroll through Twitter to find pieces of it.
They are archived on HDD. I can show you some later if you'd like.
Yes, please. Will you show me your art?
Sure, I can send links later today.
Oh, speaking of which, have you transferred your art yet?
Not yet. You'll be notified when I do so.
But nothing came. I didn't think too much of it at first, but still wondered what took him so long. I then noticed a few tweets sometime later that talked about Daft Pina's past, that his art back in the day was a bit controversial for a certain reason. After some digging, I finally found out what he likes to draw, that he used to be called Derp Couch, and where to look for more information, which was at Meme Center. It was there that I found out the truth. Daft Pina used to be a tracer himself. So he used to trace and not give the artist he traced from any credit, and denied it when someone called him out for it back in the day. Daft even apparently called out someone named Gearboy for tracing when they were both younger, 5 years ago, yet Daft did just that. So it appears that Daft was in fact the enemy he sought out to destroy. His art couldn't compare to others' work, so he decided to dedicate his life as an art critic instead, searching for drama to continue afloat. However, he had to do quite a bit to get to the position he is at right now, because much of his original content has been deleted or made private. He has antagonized a lot of people quite unfairly, like reviewing the porn of Jaden Animations and also making 2 videos heavily criticizing her for how she dealt with her eating disorder. When he started to make certain friends like Meat Canyon, Daft deleted those videos. He's also had quite a long and somewhat angry history of being at war with storytime animator Odds One Out. Odds One Out makes his videos for younger audience, even writing children's books, and Daft seems to always be there to trash it. He even attacked a teenager once, who happened to be another storytime animator, and it is ironic considering who he's been trying to grandstand as of late. The only reason he has an audience with certain woke individuals is because of his erasure of past videos. If he kept them up, he would not have the audience, because he has made edgy jokes and even told one storytime creator to quit. Daft had even had a war with someone similar to Odds One Out, named Tim Tom, at least I think it is. But point is, Tim refused to let Daft make a video and called Daft out as an attention seeker. Though to be fair, they collaborated sometime later. But getting back to tracing, he has been trying to push against tracing as hard as he could, even talking harshly about someone for tracing memes. But if he likes someone like Meat Canyon, he looks past any tracing he has done. You can see Daft's video on Meat Canyon yourself, where he avoids the tracing as hard as he can, not to hurt his friends' feelings. But that obviously shows the level of journalism Daft Pina is offering, not objective by any means. A part of me does wonder why some people listen to Daft Pina if he does not seem to draw art anymore. Now I know about how someone does not need to be a chef in order to critique food, but I think he should try and practice, just to see if he can take his own criticisms and improve on what he initially tries to do. Something tells me he won't, though, because he wants to be accepted, and that's all he's looking for. I think now that this video is almost over, and if he gets all the way till the end, he will think a little more about the pros and cons of tracing, but I'm not holding my breath. Now I know he mentioned another topic in the video, a topic that started a week after the interview. There has been even more controversy regarding this topic, which is the drama involving Puppy-chan. There is a video on this controversy already made, though many people still ignore it. I will link the video below, but if you don't have the patience for a 10-minute video, I just want to state some of the main facts from it. First off, Puppy-chan started the drama by replying to my tweets. She quoted me and lectured me on her views, and I did not even know of her existence at the time. She also had trans on her bio before she removed it, from what I heard. And because of her comic's main character, who is trans, I assumed Puppy-chan was trans as well. Contrary to what has been said and spread around, I did not question her genitals. I simply asked, "Were you not born biologically male?" in response to the tweet she sent me where she admitted herself that the reason why she is attacking me is because of her period. Because science has said that trans women cannot have periods, and so she would be lying if she was a trans woman. Thus, I called her out. I only found out later that Puppy-chan was biologically female. But it was already too late as the drama was at its peak. Still, I have yet to see a single threat from my followers towards her. If you do have an example, I would like to see it. However, I have dozens of screenshots proving that many of her followers doing just that, sending me death threats. Also, just because she is at a certain age, non-binary, black and has autism, that does not exempt her from criticism. After I posted the Pill Fighter video featuring her character, Puppy-chan was the one who contacted me and apologized for the harassment and death threats I got. However, because of the death threats and spam that I continuously received on a daily basis, I was not ready to forgive her just yet. Puppy-chan actually feared what her fans would say if she publicly buried the hatchet with me. She did not even want to retweet the agreement I made due to this fear. However, we did state to our followers to not harass each other, and it seemed like things would get better. Though the day after the agreement, a friend of Daft sent him out of contact screenshots from my Discord server. The screenshots showed conversations I had with other fans before the agreement was made. Daft then posted the screenshots on Twitter, causing the drama to reignite, and Daft even accused me of planning to backstab Puppy-chan on her 18th birthday. If anything, this further proves that Daft is trying to just live on the drama. If he wanted things to get better, he would have confronted me about this first. After all, I was on his Discord's contact list for a while. But because he's apparently on a crusade to take me down, he posted the screenshots under his own narrative. He's twisting everything I say and do to make the drama even worse. But I've said enough about Daft now. I see there were a lot of people who had a major problem with my Pill Fighter trailer featuring Puppy-chan, but I have yet to see actual evidence of a cartoon dog being 17 years old. I know some of you said that this is sexualization of a minor, but first things first, who is this minor we are talking about here? Puppy-chan the human or Puppy-chan the fictional cartoon dog? Looking at the online age converter, 17 in dog years is actually 159 in human years. Wouldn't that be a bit too old for Puppy-chan in real life? I also see some people keep bringing up a theory that my cartoon character, Mr. Freaks, is actually me or my persona. Then who are you listening to and looking at right now? Last time I checked, I did not have a tail or gray eyebrows. I even made a video some time ago showing how the real-life me is turning into this avatar version I'm using here. So just like all of my other cartoon characters, Mr. Freaks is not exactly me. Of course, all of these characters have bits and pieces of my personality in them, but ultimately none of them are meant to represent my real-life identity. So because Mr. Freaks is my creation, I decide whatever age he is. So for the Pill Fighter game, his age is 17. Is that fair enough for Puppy-chan to be his opponent? After all, they're the same age in this cartoon video game. But about the period blood, I don't see anything wrong with depicting a body function in a cartoon world. I grew up playing Ren and Stimpy and Boogerman games, which had a lot of gross moves for the characters, such as booger flicking, farting, burping, and vomiting, so I don't see how period blood has anything to do with sexualization. It's simply a disposal of unwanted body material. It's not like there was something erotic happening on the battlefield, and you can't even see where the blood is coming from, as there is a black bar at all times. You could use your imagination and think of anything being under the bar, like a little gun attached to the belly that shoots once activated. Again, Puppy-chan is not a dog in real life as far as I know. She's just a furry, who by the way does this type of art herself. If anything, I'd say my Rick and Morty parody had a more controversial scene where I animated a cartoon version of Dan Harmon humping a doll. Well, maybe it's not so controversial as he did it in real life anyway. People who already have a problem with my comics will of course deny basic logic, to accuse me of whatever gets me in trouble. Even after all that has transpired, the drama is still thriving, I'm still keeping my word in that Papi-chan will not appear in the game anymore. It's the least I can do now. You can actually see in the DMs that I and Papi-chan got along the day before Daft posted out of context screenshots. And if you still think that I don't want friends with opposing political views, and why did I make this tweet asking my followers to support the person who got harassed by their friends and followers for simply liking my animation? This person stands for most of the things I made fun of in my comics, yet I had no problem helping them out and giving advice on animation in the DMs. Still, I took down that tweet because the person got even more backlash from their friends who cannot stand me, and these friends even forced the person to publicly apologize for liking my work. What does that say about art and politics? Anyway, this video has been going long enough, but I think I've covered all the things related to the false accusations. So in the end, what did Daft Pina's video mean to me? I think this Kiwi Farms post sums it up quite well.
Let me summarize this video to save everyone else from wasting 15 minutes. Racist joke comics are bad because they turn people racist. If you laugh or tell racist jokes, you're actually a racist trying to hide your racism with humor. Nothing new, nothing interesting, nothing persuasive. The same worn-out argument used in the early 2000s against violent video games, except this time it's about edgy humor. It's also tiresome.